Team of the week time. So it was largely top tier against so-called tier 2 opposition. Didn't stop the games being massively entertaining in many cases, and some of the performances being really, really impressive, and a lot of players staking a claim for spots in big rugby championship matches coming up. Slightly harder to judge this week because the opposition was so varied, but having seen all the rugby, here are my thoughts on the best 15 players, one for each jersey, that performed this weekend, and I've got a forward and a back replacement of the week, and then my top 3 players overall. Hopefully this will spark a bit of conversation, which you'll get stuck in with down below. My name's Tim, this is Egg Chasers, and let me know your thoughts, like I say, in the comments. Give the video a thumbs up and hit subscribe. So, team of the week is going to begin with, in the number 1 jersey, Tamati Williams. First time he was back in black since the Rugby World Cup final, making up for lost time, barnstorming, solid set piece. I mean, bearing in mind he looks like he's the, well, probably third choice, maybe second choice. It'll be interesting when the Rugby Championship rolls around how New Zealand use their front row resources. Serious talent. And front row depth looks very good for New Zealand currently. And it continues with New Zealand in the front row. Very impressed by Asafo Armua. And I tell you what, Codie Taylor's spot is under threat, isn't it? There are some very... When you've got Samisoni Takeaho comes back as well, you've got some seriously explosive talent. And Armua carries hard. One big concern for New Zealand has been their set piece. Line out was absolutely dreadful against England. It looked a bit better. It was Fiji. We'll see how much pressure Argentina and then South Africa and Australia put on the All Blacks. But Armua definitely pushing for a spot. I thought Dylan Richardson for Scotland was really good. He started at hooker, played in the back row. And, I mean, Gregor Townsend's got himself someone with a real versatility there. And Grobelaar for South Africa was impressive. It's a South African, for me, who completes the front row. Thomas du Toit, Thomas the Tank. He played 58 minutes. I mean, absolute monster of a unit. South Africa have no shortage of them at tight head prop. There weren't that many real dominant, imposing tight head performances. I thought Fletcher Newell for New Zealand was decent enough. But I just like this guy's work rate around the park. And having watched him in the Premiership all season, he can make big turnovers, make big tackles, offloads. He's an all-round guy, but fundamentally, he can dominate you at scrum time on both sides of the scrum. And certainly Portugal know all about that after yesterday. And again, just to complete, it's 2 All Blacks, 2 South Africans. Now, I have moved RG Snyman, who wore 5, into the number 4 jersey. I actually thought he sort of fulfilled that Eben Etzebeth enforcer role for South Africa, more so than Salman Murat, who ended up being the ball-playing second row, quite often in the first receiver position with the little tip passes. But Snyman was just hungry for work, smashing rucks, smashing people, getting up to mischief, picking fights, and I thought he was all over the shop and really liked it. Scott Barrett had a decent performance as well. I am going to move away from the All Blacks in South Africa for the number 5 jersey, because I thought Nick Frost's engine deserves some recognition. He worked his proverbials off. He worked really, really hard. And you need guys. I mean, and when you look at how well the Australian back row did, a big part of the freedom that they were able to have against Georgia as back row players with the ball is because guys like this was just working so hard. And Nick Frost is one of those guys that he might not win Man of the Match awards, he might not be noticed by fans, but his teammates really, really appreciate the work that he does to enable everyone else to do what they do. So into the back row then, and hey, South Africa. I am using the Worldwide Rugby Convention. When I was in South Africa, I was using the blindside flanker number 7 convention. I'm sat in England right now, and we're South Africa. One of the, I think France do it a little bit as well. Have the blindside flanker in 7, Charles Olivon. But anyway, I've got Ben Jason Dixon in my back row. I thought I'd talk about workhorses and guys that just massive engine this guy has got. Bearing in mind Pieter-Steph du Toit, the best player in his position in the world, is out, and Ben Jason Dixon should be making you feel fairly confident that you can bridge that gap until PSDT is back. So yeah, fantastic performance from him. Rob Valentini was really good for Australia. I thought Madeira for Portugal was their best forward. Saganidze deserves some credit for Georgia as well. There's a lot of good performances in the back row. Zuliani for Italy is an absolute breakdown beast as well. To complete the back row, I'll get to the completing the back row in a minute. To complete the flanks, Fraser McReight, just outstanding. Absolutely superb. There is an argument he's the best 7 on the planet right now, based on the rugby I've seen. But again, Australia have played Wales and Georgia, and that is absolutely a factor. Let's see how he goes leading the charge against the world champions on home soil in the Rugby Championship in just a couple of weeks. But, I mean, Fraser McReight has been exceptional for Australia. And Ardie Savia, I mean, just an absolute baller. There was one moment where he did it again. Ardie Savia's leg drive is just insane. The kind of violent manner that he runs and the strength in his legs in the carry. He took about 4 Fijians with him into their 22. He was exceptional. Harry Wilson was good for Australia. Ross Vincent for Italy as well. But that is your pack. Any thoughts on that? Anyone I've left out that I shouldn't have, should have put in, or any players that I've put in that you think there's other players that deserve it more? We will not agree on every spot. That is just a fact. There were so many good performances. There's a lot of very good performers who missed out. But that is my pack. As I move into the back line, your thoughts in the comments down below. And I've gone for an Italian, Martin Pagerello. Now, this has been a bit of a problem position for Italy. But they had a guy there, and they shredded Japan. They had a guy there in Martin Pagerello who just gave them tempo. And Japan are a team that try and play fast. Italy actually beat them at that game, and a big part of that was this guy. It was one of the best performances I've seen from him, and bearing in mind, as I say, it's been a problem position for Italy, I think that should give them a little bit of confidence. The caveat, it was Japan. Eddie Jones, by the way, no wins in 3 matches, and how long before he starts talking about, it's a 4-year project, mate. Judge me on the World Cup, mate. We will see. As for fly half, another of the lesser fancied teams, Luca Matcarver, who was absolutely brilliant against Australia. I thought he had an all-round great performance. His running game was great. He plays flat to the line. His kicking game was good. He just controlled things really well, kept Georgia in the game. And arguably, the Georgia and Portugal, what they managed to do away in Australia and South Africa respectively, yes, they lost the games and conceded a fair few points, but the resolve that they showed, the ambition and the desire that they showed, both of these teams trying to play quite an expansive game. And Georgia, I wasn't expecting that. Georgia traditionally have been really strong in the pack, but through this guy and their back line, they had a go. So I thought he was the pick of the 10s, to be perfectly honest. As we move into the centres, where there's a lot of good performers here. Sione Tuipulotu was good for Scotland. Hunter Paisami was good for Australia. Anton Linnett-Brown was the pick of the inside centres. And he and Billy Proctor are giving Scott Robertson a real head scratcher. What do New Zealand do with their centre positions? That's going to be a big talking point in the next couple of weeks leading up to the Rugby Championship. Do they depart from Geordie Barrett and Rieko Ioane? Do they go with a more conventional centre pairing? Do they pair up the Canes boys, Geordie Barrett and Billy Proctor? Do they get an out-and-out inside centre and utilise the strengths of Rieko Ioane and Geordie Barrett elsewhere? It's going to be interesting to watch. But Anton Linnett-Brown, I talked about the violence as a ball carrier of Ardie Savia. That's what I love about Anton Linnett-Brown. He carries hard. He's going to suck defenders in and create space for other people. I've already mentioned Billy Proctor. He could have been the 13 and was very close. This was probably the hardest position to choose. Ultimately, I went to and fro between Billy Proctor. Ultimately came down on Lukhanyo Am. Billy Proctor was exceptional on debut for New Zealand. I thought Dylan Riley was really good for Japan as well with 2 tries. But Lukhanyo Am looked back to his best to me. And talk about head scratchers, Jesse Creel has been an absolute beast for South Africa. He has been so good. When Lukhanyo Am had that big serious injury, lots of people underrated Jesse Creel. We're just thinking, oh, Jesse Creel's just there until Lukhanyo Am is back. But then Jesse Creel has made that jersey his own and arguably been the best in the world in the last year or so. But I tell you what, he looked really, really, really good. He looked back to his best, and he had to play that game without an inside centre, and kind of you didn't feel that. Oh, admittedly, they were up against Portugal, but a big part of it was it's not just the steppiness, it's not just the speed, it's the strength and how big and physical a guy that Lukhanyo Am is. And yeah, that's going to be an interesting one to watch come Rugby Championship time. I think we might see Jesse Creel maybe get the games against New Zealand in South Africa, but Lukhanyo Am be the one that goes out to Australia and plays those games. Good problem to have for Rassie Erasmus, but where do you stand? I do wonder, with the game that it appears like the Boks are trying to evolve and play, potentially, Am might actually be more suited to it. That's, again, another great talking point. The two centres, the 13s for South Africa, the 12 and 13 for New Zealand, they're going to be talking points. But let's get to the wings, where Makazole Mapimpi, absolute legend, not playing like a guy his age or that he's coming towards the end of his career. He played like a guy that was hungry as ever, just getting going, and he's getting closer to Jacques Fourie, and his try, he could be the third highest try scorer in South African history if he carries on the way he's going. Absolutely brilliant performance. I love the energy in defence from him. He just nudges Caleb Clark out of the picture, who was brilliant as well for New Zealand. But Makazole Mapimpi on one wing. And on the other wing, Jose Paiva dos Santos. Could have been Tabut Sadza for Georgia. Could have been Jamie Doby as well for Scotland. But dos Santos, those two tries in a evening he will never, ever forget against the world champions in Bloemfontein. Stepped Sasha Feinbergen-Ngomazulu for that second try. Footwork from the gods, and absolutely deserves a spot. And this is not me being sentimental or just giving anyone a spot they don't deserve. Shimao Bento was the best fullback on display across the whole weekend. Another Portuguese player making 2 out of the 3 back 3 spots. Bearing in mind all the players I've already mentioned. Capuozzo was awesome for Italy, but totally on merit, Bento, in my opinion at least, was the best fullback on display the whole weekend. If you disagree, let me know in the comments. That's what that's for. Give the video a thumbs up. Hit subscribe if you haven't already. I have got the replacements, the best replacements of the weekend to go. And for the forwards, Pierre Schoeman came on and absolutely dominated for Scotland against Chile, who were really... Chile were really, really spirited, gave a really good account of themselves. But you can't handle this guy. I wonder if he could end up being the starting British and Irish Lions loosehead prop on the tour to Australia next year. Him or Andrew Porter at the minute. I think there's an argument that Schoeman might actually nudge ahead of him. That will be a very interesting one to watch. Both great players. And the back replacement, no surprises here. Sasha... We're just going to be calling him by one name. He's that good, he can pull off being called Sasha. He was just out of this world good. Big decisions for Rassie Erasmus. Because Marnie Le Bocq wasn't bad. It's just Marnie Le Bocq. Sasha can do what Marnie Le Bocq can, and he can goal kick like Andre Pollard. He's the real deal. Players like Sasha come around very, very rarely. And there's been comparisons made with Dan Carter already. And the crazy thing is, that does not seem too over the top. Potentially a generational talent. Quite probably a generational talent. We're just watching start his international career, and he did not look remotely out of place in any of the 3 games he's played so far. In fact, he made his presence very much felt like he's been there for years. Top 3 players of the weekend then. I'll be interested to know yours. Really difficult to pick because there were some standout performers. I've gone with, in third spot, let me get myself out of the way for this. There we go. In third spot, Ardie Savea. He was so good. Billy Proctor as well for New Zealand were brilliant. I considered him even though he didn't get in the 15. Makazole Mapimpi considered. Ben Jason Dixon was great. Bento and Dos Santos for so many good performers. Second spot I gave to Fraser McReight. I just thought he was absolutely brilliant. Has been for Australia in these first 3 games under Joe Schmidt and deserves some credit. Top performer of the week for me, Sasha. That is how much I think of his performance in 35 minutes at the weekend. The guy is absolute. He's a rock star. He is a rugby rock star. And even in less than half a game of rugby, I thought he did enough to say he is the best player of the weekend. Is that over the top, do you reckon? I don't think it is. That's my thoughts. I'd love to know yours. Let me know in the comments down below. I will see you on the next one.